So we are live.
That's amazing.
So weird.
I love that people get to see us messy. We're just going to get better at this. We're in a shift. We're in a transition ourselves.
We are absolutely. I think we need a new producer of these, though. Like, I think I'm fired. I'm firing myself. So, well, now that everyone's been so patiently waiting, I was just kind of doing an intro of like what we wanted to talk about today. Really how the world of work is changing. We keep talking as HR professionals, like, well, it's okay not to have all the answers, and it's okay to, just kind of go with the flow, and change is a good thing. And all of that's true. I believe in it wholeheartedly. However, sometimes we have to know the answers. Sometimes we have to come up with a plan. And so this is kind of that conversation around like what we're hearing at the Hive, and then also just taking questions and kind of figuring out, what's the best result. And so we'll talk a little bit about HR team meetings, like creating meetings outside of your organization, how to create those, whether it's in Hive or elsewhere. Mindy, what's top of mind for you?
Top of mind for me is helping understand the why behind what we're doing for others, to engage with anyone that might be with us in the interwebs of LinkedIn Live. This is supposed to be in the future, hopefully interactive conversations as we bring other experts into the conversation with us. And that's why we didn't want to just do a podcast that wasn't interactive, and so that's why it's like pod-esque-ish. But top of mind for me is really helping people understand why are team meetings so important.
Some of the best teams that I've worked on, or team meetings, are there because they're safe. They're a place to, one, gut check and say, how are you doing? Am I crazy? This is what I'm seeing. Like my biggest thing is a lot of times in a team meeting, I'm telling myself a story, right? I can observe through my lens and my biases and my experience, but I'm telling myself a story. And so a good team meeting can be like, this is what I'm telling myself. However, sometimes your perception is not necessarily the most widespread. So that's the first goal of a team meeting for me.
Step back before that, Marnie. When you're defining team as a team meeting as a head of people, when you were in-house, who was in that team? Who was your team?
Great question. So typically from a people and culture standpoint, I've always set it up of find them, grow them, keep them, right? So you have your talent acquisition team members, whether it's when I work in startups. So it's always been pretty small, but you have talent acquisition, you have learning and development, the growth part. And so you have those individuals who are focused on a certain part of the employee journey and care. And then you have more of that HR generalist type role of the person who's working with the managers and getting people paid and benefits and all of that. And so a lot of times with those team meetings, we would have literally a JIRA board with employees at different moments of the employee journey, so that we as a collective team could understand where our people were, what was going on with them. We could talk about the whole person and where they were in the organization, and be able to cross collaborate on how to make that employee journey more seamless for those people.
And so in your team meetings, was there ever a time where it was before you had built that team, or it was just you?
Yeah. Well, I only had a few of those team meetings because most of the time it was just me, right? And so
Because you got to that point,
Oh,
right? That's what you built towards, that team meeting.
exactly. So, I mean, I've been a solo head of people for so many times, building the plane while I'm flying it. And a lot of times you go to your weekly leadership team meeting, if you're invited at all, and they're like, okay, well, what strategies, here's our OKRs, what strategies do you have from a people and culture perspective that you're going to bring to the table? But that's where things tend to break, because here's what can happen is I can have hypothesis that may or may not be connected to what's going on in the business, and then I'm throwing stuff at the wall, right? Because like, this is my observation, what I think is happening. I'm probably inventing something for the first time, or I don't know who else has done this particular strategic initiative. Maybe it's just not just comp leveling, but comp leveling. And so that to me has been what's broken for a solo head of people for a really long time is like we're expected to be peers on the leadership team, may or may not be, but we're expected to bring a strategy, but we're doing it on our own. And that just seems this particular profession of all professions, it seems like that happens more often than not.
Yeah. And I grew up in like big companies, right? And they weren't big, they weren't the conglomerates they are now. It was Microsoft in its growth days, Expedia in its growth days, but we had a large HR function, like large HR function. So I grew up with these really, and I was very blessed with incredible leaders early on, and they had these
Mhm.
amazing team meetings that had clear agendas. We would often have themes. We have pre-work that we would bring to our team meetings. They were not status updates, right? Like our status updates are what we were supposed to read from the dashboards and from, back back in 2000, they're like Excel spreadsheets, and we didn't have Tableau back
Yeah.
then. But we were expected to look at the data ahead of the meeting and already come in with the build out the agenda, depending on who the leader was, with some clear questions that we had that we need to block together. And we had an agenda that had time blockings. And so you grow up with this like incredible team meeting. And then as I went into small organizations, and I was just like, okay, where's our team meeting? I mean, we come into as a head of people and they're like, well, what do you mean team meetings? Well, we have those once in a while. And I was just like, no, oh, we've got to like only as good as a leader as the people on the team. And so that was one of the first unlocks of like coming in and starting some of these first team meetings where people actually said, oh my goodness, you care about what I think about this? You want me to question what you're coming to us with? They are expecting someone to come to the meeting, tell them what to do, how to action it, ask questions to get clarity on their actions, and then go and do it. And then come back the next time with a status update and say, okay, Mindy, what do we do next? And I was like, no, no, no. Because exactly what you said, like I needed someone that I don't have the same level of experience. I was new into these organizations. I needed their expertise to challenge my blind spots, to challenge my assumptions, and together we were better together. And so that's where they get so set. I had an early leader that often said, one team, better together. And that just kind of sunk into my DNA. And that is so true. Like having when I felt like I was on my own and in my head, it was so frustrating because you can't be better together with one. Me, myself, and I are actually also my frenemies. Like my own internal voices could be sometimes the best ever, but also sometimes the very worst for me.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And that's one thing that you said kind of got me thinking too. We talk to a lot of people that we speak with are maybe their first time head of people, first time HR director, whatnot. And I think this is why the HR profession has gotten a bad rap over the years, because when you don't have co-collaborators and you don't have anyone beyond your frenemies, like your own frenemies, then you're not advancing in thought process. So I don't know about you, but like how many times it's like, well, I don't know, you're the head of HR. You tell us what to do. Well, okay, I guess I can throw out an employee engagement survey and go from there. But that's stale. It's not. I mean, they have a purpose, but we don't have that opportunity to have really co-collaboration and kind of really focusing on that business aspect. These are the business problems that we have that we need to solve for. And okay, as a person with a head of people hat on, how do people affect that business problem? And how can I help shape a hypothesis and an opportunity statement in order to actually have return on investment for my initiatives, return on investment for the time that we spend on our people and culture strategy, our HR strategy, and actually have people to test that hypothesis on.
Marnie, you like just took that out of my head. Like you sounded like me. You sounded like me. And we actually have people on the live. I finally got my laptop, so maybe it's good I'm on the phone because if you're still with us, John, Matthew, Sharon, and Holly, thank you so much for joining us. It's so great. We have people this time actually listening. in. Um, so exciting. But if anyone is still with us, because it's hard to tell, this is my first LinkedIn Live and Trent. It looks like we have 6 people. We would love your questions. If anything right now that we're talking about, and I know there's sometimes a delay, but if there's something about team meetings where you've seen things that haven't worked really well, or how do you define team meeting? Maybe we're missing something here. Or, where have you found the
Mhm.
lack of a team meeting get to be a real challenge? Would love to hear from you. Or if you just have questions that are completely adjacent to any of that, we love to, we're just here. So please, please play and participate with us. So, Marnie, when we were kind of our why behind the team meetings, when we were starting to build, we started catalytic culture, and you and I had been working with the heads of people, these solo HR leaders and organizations, one on one in our own individual work. And we got really
Yeah.
passionate in our conversation about the struggles that these individuals were stepping through and walking alongside of them. We felt like we were good for them up to a point. And then we got really curious about what would it mean like to put them together to kind of create that team for them. Um, what in that experience in our 3-month cohort, what were some of the magic moments for you where you saw the power of the team?
Um, okay, so number one, the magic moment was them asking like, how do I get in touch with the other people in the team in the mastermind? And that to me was like, yes, they are a peer led, peer advising, and we get to just kind of walk along that. But then we also had a session. So we spew a lot of information at the people the cohort at first, and no, we did it together. Mindy's pointing to herself if you're just listening, but anyway, long story short, we gave them all this information, all these templates, and they're like deer in headlights, like, okay, thanks, but this is a lot, right? And so what happened is we started having sessions of like, actually, just come to us with an opportunity statement. It's like, okay, here's a problem statement that I'm trying to solve. I have a hypothesis of what it's going to be. And here's the opportunity statement that I'm going to bring to this group that's not invested in this business that I work with, but I want to take this opportunity statement and put it in front of this group and get your feedback, get your ideas. And that particular session, the opportunity statement, we had a couple sessions because they went over, was gold. I mean, it was just amazing. We had someone who was actually on a job search, and she brought a like slide deck about like, here's how I am rethinking the job search, who is now gainfully employed as well. But she's got so many good contacts and whatnot. And then I'll say my third magic moment from that cohort was really around eh, we got to the end. We were asking for feedback around format and everything. And we had one participant who said, have you been to an unconference? That's where the real magic was in the mastermind, was when we brought the topics. When you and Mindy, or Mindy and Marnie, just were there to provide assistance and guidance. And yep, I have experience with that, or we have a tool here and there. But when they brought their own topics and used each other, that feedback is what propelled us into AltHR Hive. And so those were my three magic moments.
Oh, I love
And
that. Yeah, I saw
yeah.
Sharon's
Oh,
question.
yeah. It says, okay, for our senior leadership team, we have an agenda. However, rarely do we provide our issues prior to the meeting. It comes out in our team meeting updates, but we need to be more proactive in utilizing our time for the meeting. Yeah, here. Because then it's a status update, right? And you're not solving real problems. I mean, Sharon, I feel that to my core.
And I think that we've gotten into such an unhealthy meeting culture, especially in the hybrid working world that we have, that I really appreciated we every year, and I would do a meeting audit. We review our meetings too. We would relook at our team meeting norms, our meeting etiquettes, because if a meeting doesn't have an agenda, we would actually be able to push back. And if people weren't updating the agendas with topics to talk about or unlock together, then we're like, okay, we can reduce the time of this meeting because now we've got empty space and we don't have to meet for a whole hour. Um, those are just some examples, but we also push in the time where we didn't want to run back to back clock from one meeting to the next because we had to prep for the team meeting and how important it was. We actually had a 15-minute window that if you didn't prep beforehand, you at least had that 15 minutes to, if you had done the prep, here's extra 15 minutes. But if you didn't, read the dashboards, come to the agenda, fill in, as much as you can. It doesn't give as much as time for everyone to kind of see where everyone's questions are to really put some thoughtfulness into it. But those team meetings, those were precious times because we were actually juicing out and strategically talking through the things that like mattered most. And there was always time to personally connect, which I love that about my early leaders because that was the importance. That's how we got to know each other. Like one person sometimes would say, "Okay, how are you coming into the meeting? Red, yellow, or green?" And it was a great conversation.
Mhm.
And then once we grew trust and we felt like we could start to name our emotions, we started to see that conversation evolve. I get really
Yeah.
passionate about the meetings, audits, and etiquette.
That's so good, and think, I think if anyone wants any tips, you're awesome at the meeting etiquette and audit. I had a client that had decided that they weren't gonna push, manager one-on-ones anymore because they had too many meetings, and it was a virtual environment, and to me, that's, bless their heart, it's a failure of the system. That was a casualty of having meetings that weren't impactful elsewhere. And Sharon, yeah, like the company policy, new hires, they know how to show up then, right? And we're not wasting each other's time. We're really clear. That clarity and that communication is huge.
Yes, and what's really great is in the company policy, but for me, I'm a huge evangelist of team norms.
Yeah.
And team norms are really about your ways of working, your agreed upon ways of working. And it's something that you should be checking quarterly. But every single time a new person comes into the team, they're bringing something different. And so revisiting the team norms with them and then looking to really ask and facilitate a conversation of, as we welcome this new person in, how do we modify these team norms? And then doing that then on a quarterly cadence kind of helps it kind of, especially for new hires, for it to become just a way of working.
Absolutely. We were just talking about two of our Hive friends who, they entered the workforce really at a time where it was already distributed. You and I cut our teeth. I'm not going to date us, but we cut our teeth in person to begin with in the workforce. And I had a lot of water cooler conversations and got to be culturally ingrained in that respect. And I think that's why these team meetings have to have the emotional check-ins, the safety, and the norms that are established because you have to have those guardrails in today's distributed environment.
Yeah. And I love Sharon's next comment. This is another button hot topic subject for me. Is there a place
Mhm.
where annual reviews go away and one-on-ones become the place to have those conversations? And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. That is like, yes, I 100%. Because for me, when I really would ask about annual reviews, I'm like, why are we doing this? It was mostly a governance paper check. And I'm like, that is not a good why to be doing these. These need to be real-time conversations. And so how do we start to really look at our one-on-ones and first of all, training people on how to have good one-on-ones and what should the outputs and the outcomes be, but also having them be self-managed, like self-managed agendas and how the employees kind of speak into that and how it becomes a two-way feedback for one-on-ones, actual conversation between a manager and an employee and even help them build their strategic lift and help the two of them become better together. So Sharon, I mean, that's a topic for another day. Do you want to be on a future live with us to talk about that topic? Because I think we could have an hour on that one. She says,
For
yeah. Now,
sure.
I don't know if she says yes to going live with us in the future, but I'm just going to take that as a yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll take it as yes too, Sharon. You can tell us no later. But, she's like, you'll need a different producer for sure. But yeah,
Okay.
big proponent of killing. Yeah, Matt. Ugh, I know annual reviews are antiquated, and today's team and how they work. Absolutely, like I'm big fan of Adobe did it quite a few years ago. They were like, you just have to have quarterly one-on-ones. I don't care if you have it on a napkin or whatnot. Just do them, and then we'll figure it out later. But they inspired me many years ago, and I think today it's more powerful than ever.
So,
You know,
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mindy. Well, it brings me to, okay, with the Hive and the Leadership Lab that we just released, that's why we added the team meetings. So really the one thing I wanted to talk about was who's growing the heads of people, who the heads of HR, who is growing those people, where is the safe space for them? Sometimes you have it internally. In most cases you don't, or in most cases you have to put on kind of an air of within your company. So my initial suggestion is even if you don't join the leadership lab, find your team, right? And that team doesn't have to be in your company. Find the few people that can be a board of your directors, etc. But what else is top of mind though? Like Mindy, that can you talk a little bit about team meetings and how we're thinking of it?
Yeah, yeah. And the team meetings, I mean, is exactly kind of just prefaced it so well and why we're so passionate about it because these heads of people are on their own. They need a team. They are so inundated and burnt out and overwhelmed with just the day to day. And so many
Yeah.
of them want to invest in time to go to webinars and to learn, but they're just trying to get through their day and to think about, am I thinking about this in the right way? I would love to try this differently, but I have like 5,000 other things I need to get today. And oh, by the way, the manager is knocking on the door during this webinar. And now I've like put this on pause and now I'm having conversation with someone else. So now I'm learning through osmosis. We just became so passionate about our future function, especially through the shift of work of what was, we've got to let go of. It doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't. And while we're trying to figure out what does work, we're in an experimental phase. Our workplaces are evolving quicker than we can even know it. And for our function to stay in the function, it is so important. It is more important than ever now. Even in those improv classes and in the recent book that I wrote an article on called Cultivate, emotional human intelligence, how to do life together, how we behave together, communicate, connect is ever more important. And our function, it's time. It's time for us. But in these smaller companies, when we're on our own, how do we do that by ourselves? And that's a team meeting. That's the every other week, 1 hour, small curated cohorts. We're going to have 6 to 7 people that are going through the exact same thing that you're doing and working through all of this together with a chief people officer, with you and I. I mean, I think we saw our work as being HR advisors and fractional executives. Working one on one was great, but it's expensive, and
Yeah.
not everyone can afford that. And you and I also saw people reaching out on their own, paying out of their own pocket because they were so desperate for help. And that's where we wanted, how do we democratize this to give everyone the ability to have team, to get crap done, but also learn and grow and invest in yourself at the same time to get that breath you need to have that work life balance and stay in the function and don't lose the joy. People started this job often because they wanted to make an impact and to help. And so that is why I got so passionate about doing this. That is what we're all about, helping come alongside of the future of the function. Did I say that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
I feel like I just word vomited.
Dude, I would join and sign up all over again. For so, um, yeah, no, that's exactly it. I love Holly, your board of directors or your kitchen table. Yeah, the kitchen table. Love it. And that continuous feedback, Matt, absolutely. And Holly, real time feedback is golden, absolutely. And that's kind of what the team meetings are for too, is real time feedback. Because guess what? We all want each other to succeed. We don't like it's a room where we're rooting for each other with no other hidden agenda other than that. So,
And
yeah.
one last thing. We also, most of the heads of people have never managed teams. And yet they're like working to grow these organizations and looking to what you just said that you did to hire the people to then lead them. But if we've never led or been in a good team meeting, how do we know then to model that and do that once we do have people reporting under us? So that's also the other beauty of this is they're getting to see the magic and how do great team meetings function and build that muscle so that when they do get that team, they already know how to do it because they've been doing it with us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Mindy, we're up on time. Did you see what I did there? There's a little link that says join the hive. Um,
Oh, yes.
I know I can do something, but we're going to be doing these once every other week. So if there's a topic that you want to hear about, you want us to talk about a guest that you want to come on, please let us know. We're here for you, and if you're interested, come join the hive. Safe travels, Mindy. We'll
Thank
talk
you
to you all
so
later.
much.
Thank
Take care,
you.
Mindy.
Bye.